Welcome, everyone. We'll give just a second to allow folks to join us, and hopefully for somebody to say, "Hey, we can hear you, we can see you." But I think that's the case already. We're Billy and Larissa from cruisehabit.com, and want to do our typical New Year's Eve thing and talk about
Yeah.
the CDC or something. Um, there's been a lot of talk lately after the CDC put out some new guidance for cruisers, and we wanted to take the opportunity to talk about it because I'm getting a ton of questions on social media, text messages. I assume someone is sending me postcards with questions, and figured it would be worth coming on and discussing it. And I'll tell you some of our opinions. You might be surprised because we're cruise people. We just got off a ship a couple days ago. And to be clear,
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if you can see that. All right,
Yeah,
you're
I've
just gonna
got
have to
mine
trust
too.
me. It's not focusing. Negative test result.
Negative
You're just
test
gonna have
result.
to trust me. It's not focusing. Um, we're cruise people. We're gonna be on another ship in a week from today, a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
But but in certain ways, the CDC has a point, and but I don't think they're telling. I don't think they're sharing the full story. So that's what we want to talk about today. No matter what your opinion is, whether you love cruising, hate cruising, in which case, like, why are you here? But that's okay. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
It's a rough time on land and sea, right? The Omicron variant it's made holiday plans very tricky for many. Holiday plans just being one of the things that's made tricky, right? Uh, but it's particularly relevant now. So I want to talk about those updates from the CDC, what I agree with, but also considerations that maybe aren't included in that guidance, that aren't being talked about when you see these news stories about outbreaks at sea and things that lack context. I am doing this video live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you have questions, and I just realized the chat's not being displayed. There we go. So if you have questions, please feel free, whatever platform you're watching on, to comment, and I will answer those questions as best I can live. Anything that I miss, either live or for those watching on the replay, I'll do my best to go back
Yeah.
in those cases. Uh,
Happy New Year,
Happy New
everybody.
Year, Randy.
Yeah.
Pascal's here. Francis Eddie, hello. Pam
Yeah.
Curtis Davy, hello. Barry, guys, thank you so much for joining. So let's jump into it. Give people plenty of time to come in. Let's start with kind of the obvious thing here, right? The current variant, the Omicron variant, is obviously more transmissible than previous variants. That there's no question, right? Vaccines did a great job of keeping us from getting infected at all with previous variants, and they provide some protection there for Omicron, but not as good. However, uh, vaccines are still doing great things in terms of preventing severe illness. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But it's obviously more transmissible, and it's not unreasonable because of that to postpone your travel plans, whether those are cruise plans or anything else, if you're not comfortable with the possibility of infection and you want to instead stay home and avoid public places on land.
Yeah.
Remember, the majority of people, to be clear, that are going to go somewhere, especially though not exclusively on a ship in the next week or whatever, couple weeks, are probably not going to get COVID, right? However, going anywhere where there are a bunch of people around right now, but absolutely you're at
There
increased
it is.
risk. To that extent, I agree with some of what the CDC said. We're currently in a very situation than we were just a few weeks ago.
A different situation.
Yes, what did I say?
A very situation.
Very situation.
Very different.
We are in a very situation. Um, the CDC, however, they call out cruising specifically this week, saying, and I'm quoting here from their website, even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk for getting and spreading COVID-19 variants. That is absolutely true. Omicron is more transmissible, and cruise travel puts a person at increased risk of infection when compared to avoiding prolonged interaction with others wherever you are, in a restaurant, on a plane, at an airport, um, whatever place you want to hang out in. It's also true that the CDC didn't provide similar guidance, doesn't and didn't, for air travel, for restaurants, for malls,
Movie
and
theaters.
movie
Yeah.
theaters. Yeah, movies are real big around this
That's
time of the year. I mean, more on Christmas, I think, but yeah. This means that their guidance leads people to think, I suspect, leads many to think, oh, cruising is the problem, the thing I should avoid. And that puts people at risk of making decisions, alternative plans that are not safer, that might be less safe. And that's not helpful. So I think even if this is very well intentioned from the CDC, omitting that information, omitting that context is not helpful. It leads people to think that there's some extraordinary risk in cruising compared to other activities. And unless that other activity is staying at home, staying away from groups of people, then that's just not the case. And I'm going to get into some of those numbers in a moment. Pascal brings up a great point. Can't get coworkers to vaccinate, mask, or test. You're safer on a cruise. Yeah, and in fact, that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about we can discuss that right now. In fact, let's say you stay on land, and you now are around people not only where you don't know if they are vaccinated or not, you know that some of them aren't going to be, many of them, depending on where you live. They've probably not been recently tested. And you know what happens on a ship if there is a breakthrough, when there is a breakthrough, because it happens, right? Those people are isolated to reduce further transmission. On land, the person sitting next to you at a restaurant tomorrow night may have tested positive in the morning. They just said, meh.
In there, yeah.
And they may have any number of reasons for saying meh, which you may or may not agree with, but that's the reality. So that's a very, very good point. Barry, given Omicron, is it possible to sail safely this week? So let's talk about how transmissibility is working on ships versus on land. Let's talk about some of the numbers. As Nathan says, statistics don't lie. So despite the transmissibility of Omicron, the protocols actually seem to be ensuring reduced transmission on cruise ships. And I'm going to give you some very real world examples here. So in Florida, the current 7-day positivity rate is right around 20%. Now, Florida is interesting because this is a bit of a side note. Florida decides only to count positive tests if the people live in Florida.
Yeah, I live in Florida.
A lot of people that live in Florida for like a big chunk of the year don't live here. That's another thing altogether. So Florida, current positivity rate about 20%. Now, all crew on all cruise ships are tested at least weekly, more frequently in many cases, every 3 or 4 days. Pardon me. And on ships, we saw like Odyssey of the Seas, that made big news recently, right? Odyssey of the Seas, there were about 70 positive crew members. Well, that's a little over 4%
on that ship.
I'm not a mathematician. 4%, way lower than 20%. Now, even that number is flawed because that was a cumulative number of isolated crew over the course of a week and not a single 7-day period of test results. So even among crew who live in tighter quarters and spend months at a time on ships, we're seeing a positivity rate that's about 1/5 of that on land in Florida. So again, I'm not suggesting that there aren't cases on ships. I'm not suggesting that if you're looking to avoid COVID, you should go on a ship. But if you're comparing that to going out and about in Florida, for example, well, positivity rate on even the cruise ships making the headlines, even among crew, seems to be about 1/5 of that we're seeing on land in Florida. Now, if you live in New Jersey, by the way, your positivity rate is about 86%. Only, I looked at all 50 states and sorted them by positivity rate, and only the sparsely populated state of Wyoming has a positivity rate similar to what we saw on Odyssey of the Seas. So I guess if you want to take a road trip to Wyoming, I hear it's beautiful. Never been. So you can consider things that way. Now, there's another element of this. Because most cruise ship crew members are boosted, all are vaccinated, and on many cruise lines. In fact, I can tell you on at least Celebrity and Virgin, I've confirmed all crew members are boosted in addition to being vaccinated, but all crew members are vaccinated on all cruise ships. Most of these cases seem to result in asymptomatic or very mild cases. Pascal, yeah, 86%.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to double check that number for New Jersey.
It's also, I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind. The Pascals, don't compare that to Florida necessarily, because the way they're reporting the numbers in Florida might
Absolutely.
make it seem like it's a lot.
So their state's lower and
Shifts,
higher, but that's a good
yeah,
point, Larissa. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, crew members, anecdotally, very anecdotally, I like to stick with numbers, but it's also helpful. I hope to relate in more of a personal way, very human way, I'll say. Um, I've been in communication with multiple crew members on ships over the last week who are isolated right now after testing positive. And every single one I've talked to is completely asymptomatic, which I'm delighted, right? Sucks. They're probably bored, but I'm delighted to hear they're asymptomatic. I've also been in communication with several guests who are positive and have extremely mild symptoms.
Yeah.
We tested negative just this morning. We disembarked the ship several days ago. There were people on that ship.
Amount of time for the incubation period
Right.
since the last day of the cruise.
There are people on that ship who tested
But
positive,
people
who
are
have been in
starting.
communication with, and they are experiencing extremely mild or no symptoms. Now, many public health experts in the U.S. and elsewhere are starting to point out that because so many people are boosted, because so many people are vaccinated, because Omicron is presenting so mildly for vaccinated people, isn't doing the damage to the lungs, things like that. In fact, I saw the other day, I think it was that this week we had 76% higher rate of infection and only a 12% increase in hospitalization. That speaks for itself, right? So because of that, there are a lot of public health experts in the US and in other countries that are saying, okay, maybe we should start thinking about this differently. Maybe we should start thinking, because this is a different situation than months ago. I would not have argued for this case weeks or months ago.
No.
But maybe now with Omicron, we should stop focusing on the number of infections and find a different way to measure the severity of the situation, both on land and at sea. And I would agree with that and welcome that on sea. Vaughn, you're director of health in Ohio. You're cruising in April. Yeah, Vaughn. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm not saying that because I appreciate you agreeing with me, because I'm not saying you're endorsing everything I'm saying. But yeah, you have to look at the full situation. There, not just, when the CDC puts out something which may be very well intentioned, you can't look at that in a vacuum, because it's not helpful. Yeah, cruise ships are far more stringent. Where can you go on land where everyone has very recently been tested, where everyone has been vaccinated, where known positives are isolated? It's not an option. The only place I can think of really is in a hospital. And I worked in healthcare for many years. I appreciate everyone who does, and I'm glad I don't anymore. I'll be honest. Kim, hey there, Kim. We're looking forward to cruising with you next week. You should have a package from me, probably. Well, I guess there's limited mail today, no mail this weekend. Early next week. Looking very forward to seeing you guys. Kim's going to be joining us on the Cruise Habit Group cruise, and very excited. We'll be sharing all of that. Pascal, yeah, numbers alone are misleading. Numbers are helpful. I'm a huge numbers nerd. That's kind of a realm in which both of us work. But you have to look at all the numbers and have them in context. Fern, safer on a ship than in a grocery store. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be very honest. We are doing almost nothing this week leading up to our group cruise. We're seeing family tomorrow who's all boosted, and everyone's testing right beforehand. And even there's a risk. Anywhere there's a risk, we'll be outside much of the time, partially because I'm very allergic to my family's dogs. But that's the only thing we're doing, because I live in South Florida. If I I don't want to go to the grocery store and pick up something there, partially because I don't want to miss my group cruise.
We had groceries delivered yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not being as careful.
Scott, somehow I look better today, Billy. Yeah, it's that's the thing, Scott. Like I said, context, right? I look more attractive when it's both Larissa and I, because she makes everyone look wonderful. Just her glow. Um,
Hi, Scott. Thank you.
that's I'm surprised to hear you say that. However, because I usually don't feel like I look better right after being on a cruise. I feel
Yeah, me
down. I
neither.
want to be honest. Yeah. I did. Oops, sorry. I did see
Mhm.
Clea's response, and actually, let me. Yeah, Clea, I think is talking about a lot of things that we're talking about here. Nick, I didn't. I honestly, that's interesting. I'm glad. Didn't even know that was an option.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
so, so anyway, we were talking. I was talking about boosters, right? And because with crew being boosted, and listen, if you are eligible, you should get boosted. I highly encourage it. I will say, as someone who had like not a great experience with the second Moderna shot, like I just felt lousy. Way better than having COVID, but it felt lousy. I actually didn't feel so bad after the booster.
Yeah.
Anecdotal, your results may vary, but
Yeah, the
just to
booster was a
to
little
put you guys
worse.
at ease. Um, So about the boosters, I have a prediction. I don't like making predictions, especially about dynamic situations like this and the government. However, I have a prediction, and I'm reasonably confident. I think that by January 15th, so just 16 days away, we're going to see um, a change in requirements for cruisers, at least an announcement. Maybe it won't be effective right away. Maybe it'll be effective, in 30 days or whatever. And that's going to be for boosters. And the reason I think that is because January 15th is when the conditional sale order is set to expire.
Yeah.
And it'll either be renewed, and if it is, they may update it, or there's always the risk that they may say, oh, we're not going to update it, we're putting it on hold. And cruise lines want to do everything they can, one, to stay on the good side of the CDC and stay on the good side of the public, but also they want to reduce infections. Listen, very honestly, because of these breakthroughs, it makes running the ship a lot harder, right? It's work to isolate people. It's work when there aren't as many crew members working because they have to stay in isolation for sometimes 2 weeks and stuff like that. Maybe that guidance will change how long they have to be isolated. Um, so cruise lines have a vested interest in doing everything they can to make things as safe as possible. They truly do. They're businesses, but to run their business, they want to keep things as safe as possible. So I suspect that in order to stay on the good side of the public and the CDC, and to be able to keep cruising and to keep things operating as smoothly as possible, that by the time the CISO expires, I suspect that we will see um, a a requirement of boosters, or an announcement of a requirement of boosters. Um, Man, Vaughn, I want to read your entire thing. I don't know what it's a lot of text. I don't know what's going to happen
If
if I
we bring
put
it
that
up on
up
the
on the
screen.
screen.
So
Yeah, let me see what happens. Yeah, it's going to truncate it. So, Vaughn, I'm just going to go through and I hope you don't mind. Um, Mention just kind of some key points in here. Um, yes, viruses mutate, and because viruses need hosts, quite often, as viruses mutate, they become less deadly. They become more transmissible, less deadly. Makes sense. Very simple evolutionary
yeah.
stuff, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, media is they're going to go for the clicks, and it's going to play out like the risk of um a horrifically dangerous variant. And listen, that's possible. I think you're I'm not saying this from you, but you know that. But it's but yeah, in context, I think everyone expects things to go generally the way they're going in that regard. um Uncertainty is stressful. Don't know all the answers right now. We can acknowledge that living in a world that has COVID, and we can take steps to minimize the risks to ourselves and others. Absolutely, and that's why you need to get boosted, and get vaccinated, get boosted. If you the coronavirus is not new, right? Coronaviruses are the most common, if I'm not mistaken, keep me honest here, most common cause of the common cold. Now, what we saw with COVID was a significantly more dangerous
Mhm.
um, coronavirus. But the variants hopefully continue to be more mild, like we're seeing with Omicron. Um, Yeah, he can't. Savon says he can't offer a prediction of when it'll become less dangerous with time. Just remember, the Spanish flu is still around in some mutated form.
Yeah.
No longer poses the same threat. Absolutely, absolutely.
Also a good
Um,
point to say, like, as we get better at treating it as well, right?
yeah,
Because
that's
there are new therapies now that are
absolutely.
starting to come out, and there's
Yeah,
going to be
it's like I point out with
way to get to it.
how
Mhm.
40 years ago, diabetes,
Yeah.
20 years ago,
That's
hepatitis,
yeah.
HIV,
Yeah,
all very different
truly.
circumstances now. Uh, Rhonda, you missed the beginning. We'll
Mhm.
rewatch. You booked a cruise for July. Do you know if the cruise ships will delay required payments? Wait to see what happens. So that's a fantastic question. Do I know? No. What I do know is that we've seen multiple times cruise lines do two things to make it so that guests are more comfortable going forward with whatever decision they make, sailing or not. One is reducing final payment dates. In fact, before the pandemic, I think it was NCL that pushed out some sailings like up to like maybe 120 days or something you had to pay. Now we're seeing most cruise lines requiring final payment much closer in. Depends on the itinerary, depends on the length, stuff like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see those shortened final payment dates continue to stay short and maybe even get adjusted further. The other thing they're doing is most all cruise lines, they have different names. They're offering some sort of thing like cruise with confidence, right? Where you can cancel up to just a few days out and get a future cruise credit so that you can use in the future if you change your mind for any reason. So stay tuned. I think in that regard, this is maybe this weird little silver lining. In that regard, I think the cruise industry, because cruising had become so popular, 30 million people cruised in 2019. They had this ability to start calling the shots a lot, right? I don't want to say it was becoming anti-consumer,
Yeah.
but like, man, as for payment that far out, I guess if you can do it, great,
Yeah,
right?
it
The
doesn't affect
cancellation
demand.
policies were not great. So maybe one little weird silver lining thing, and I don't mean to make light of a terrible situation, is that we'll probably for a while see those more flexible terms
Yeah,
stick
a little
around.
more flexible.
Um, Yvonne, think it's a good idea to extend shots to boosters, at least for right now. Yeah, listen, there are public health debates to be had about boosters and how that and equity of distribution. When I got a booster, I got a booster relatively early on, and I got it because I thought, you know what, in this country, we are still unfortunately throwing away expired, spoiled doses every day. If I could have got mine in hand and knew that it would make it safely instead into the arm of somebody who had never had any COVID vaccine, I would have happily done that. That's not a choice, unfortunately, that we as individuals can make right now, and therefore, absolutely get boosted. Um,
No, yeah.
Nick, I don't want to opine on this because it's speculation, but I've had that absolute same question. There are a lot of different considerations for the high
Yeah.
positivity rates, higher positivity rates in crew compared to guests. I've wondered, is some of that related to which vaccines? There's also they're in closer quarters. They're being tested, very frankly. When all these crew that I've talked to, literally, I'm not saying every positive crew member is asymptomatic right now, but everyone I've talked to has been. And it
Yeah.
makes me wonder, is it that we're actually seeing higher positivity rates elsewhere,
Yeah.
but they're being detected in cruising? Hey, see the world with Chris. I hope you are well. I saw you post some more pictures from Virgin. We had a great third Virgin sailing just the other day.
Yeah.
Pleasure hanging out with you guys. Kim, have ships been running
Awesome.
at full capacity? No, not even close. There were some lines that started sailing up to in the I want to say 80 or 90 range, but they've long since backed down. Some cruise lines never got past 60. And here's an interesting thing: even cruise lines that were saying, "Oh, we will book to X%," more often than not, we're not hitting that. And that's because the average cruiser is booking a trip, depending on what region and how long, and the cruise line, all these different things, 1 to 2 years out. Well, most of these cruises weren't available to book
Yeah.
1 to 2 years out, or things changed so much, it was like everyone just took everything, threw it up in the air, and waited for it to land again, right?
Yeah.
So
Not to mention that some people might test positive and not be able to board, or or
even that's a
if that's
minuscule percentage, right? So I think the
yeah.
biggest thing that we're seeing is, even if, and this is not the case, even if every cruise line said, "Oh, we'll fill to the gills," which is not happening. We're just on Virgin. I think they've been capping at 50, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 60.
This last one
Um,
was a little bit under, I
yeah, it
think.
was in the 40s. Even if cruise lines allowed that, the reality is you can't fill ships. Like, people just can't drop everything in cruise like that. So we're seeing extremely low sailings, but that's also why it's going up and down.
Yeah.
Um, Mr. Camacho, Eric, we just sailed
Ah,
with Eric
yes.
on Sky Princess over Thanksgiving. Rhinovirus caused 10 to 40% of colds. Coronavirus caused about 20% of colds. RSV and parainfluenza, 20%.
Thank you, Eric.
Eric, you are my dedicated research assistant. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was thinking RSV was another big one. I didn't realize rhinovirus was such a large one, though. 10 to 40, interesting window. Um, uh, Leonard, Leonard Testa, Leonard, Leonard Testa. On what account are you listed as Leonard? Miss you, love you, my friend. Scarlet Lady was wonderful. Len, who runs awesome touring plans, who manages all of our travel, by the way, all of our travel is booked through Touring Plans Travel. Please check them out. They will make your life so much easier. So you don't have to wait on hold with cruise lines or interpret these ever-changing policies. You can get a quote over at cruisehabit.com. Felt the purple form. End of shameless plug there. How is Scarlet Lady? Anything changed since the initial launch? Scarlet Lady was wonderful. There were some changes on the sailing, partially because of the dynamic nature of the situation, but there were a couple other changes that were interesting. Like Len, we talked about the workout classes filling up so much because Virgin Voyages has a big focus on fitness. You don't have to do anything with fitness. You can lay down, drink, and eat cake all day.
I did the first sailing.
But we've seen not only from the Mermaiden, but even from the sailing over Thanksgiving, that they've added a lot of those classes because
Those were the most popular.
because those group workout classes on Virgin Voyages, what's different than other cruise lines, they're complimentary. So whether it's high intensity interval training, bungee, spin classes, all these different things, they're complimentary, and so that makes them popular. So they added a lot of those, and they added some other. They added more events on the schedule, even if they're repeating some stuff, to make sure that more guests get to enjoy them. And that was a good move. Way more live music than on our sailing. Len.
And that was one of our kind of complaints a little bit, that they didn't have enough live music happening around the ship outside of the shows. That's a complete 180. They've completely changed it, and the bands are amazing, and it's been great. So yeah, I just wanted to. I was really excited about that one.
Nick, Independence had over 490 cancellations. So, yeah, flight issues, positive cases. Some people just And listen, I understand. 2,500 estimated tomorrow. I'm curious to see what that will turn into. I completely understand. As I said at the top of this video, I don't hold it against anyone if they say I want to delay my travel plans, whether that's on a cruise ship or otherwise. What I want to make sure of, all the stuff we just talked about, and I still have actually another point that I want to make sure I mention, is that if you do cancel your cruise plans, that it's not to instead go to a land resort or hang out around home and go to a bunch of restaurants on land, go to the mall, do normal things day to day, because I genuinely don't think that's a better idea, unless maybe you're in Wyoming, as we discussed. I'm going to refer to Wyoming anytime I say it.
It's something we were really concerned about that when we saw the guidance. Just really like that. That's kind of what it is, that people are going to think like, oh, if I don't go on a cruise, I'm safe, and do all these other things that may be actually riskier.
I want to catch up on comments here.
Yeah.
Hey, Valerie. Hello. We should see you at some point. I haven't seen you in the longest time, but yes, that was very apropos. That was very on brand for Eric. Yeah. And appreciated. Sailing on January 20th, lots of cancellations being announced in your roll call, which might be quite empty. Yeah, you know what? I have very mixed feelings about when I've been on. We've been on 11 cruises this year. And when there are very few people on board, on one hand, you're like, oh, this is nice. You really spread out. On the other hand, certain events, you're like, it'd be nice if there were more people here.
Yeah.
But I'm happy either way. Leonard is your grandfather. I feel like that's what happens if I say Mr. Testa. Mr. Testa is my father. I mean, my father's Mr. Hirsch. It would be weird, I guess. Yeah, I mean, change his name to whatever he wants. Pascal with the ultimate truth there. That too. One point I want to get to, and I want to get to some more of your comments. I will, but I don't want to forget something, because there is one part. As much as I'm saying, hey, take all this in context. The one way that I will absolutely say that I'm glad to see things changing with cruising, or not glad. I'm glad to see there are considerations, and I want people to understand those considerations from a standpoint of empathy, is port cancellations. We have to understand that there are some countries that cruise ships visit that have far lower vaccination rates than in the US.
Yeah, like truly,
because they don't have access, right? And those countries may need to be a lot more careful about the possibility of bringing potentially infected persons into their country by port, by air, whatever. So while some places like Aruba have 75% vaccination rates as of last check, I mean, that's pretty damn good. Others, the Bahamas, they're in the mid 30s in terms of vaccination rates. I understand if they want to be protective in that regard. Hopefully the Omicron spike in the US goes down as quickly as we see it going down in some other countries. That's another thing that we see traditionally with major outbreaks of any sort of viruses is often the more transmissible something is, the shorter spike, because you have so many people that end up with some sort of acquired immunity that it comes down. There are other factors as well. Let's see. Kathy, going out of San Juan, do you have to test 48 hours before then if you are? Yes. So I don't have the exact details in front of me. Puerto Rico did change guidance on those entering the country. What I would recommend if you are sailing out of Puerto Rico, and this is also true for St. Martin, in fact, though there aren't as many cruises leaving out of St. Martin, but there are still some on certain lines. Coordinate that with your cruise line requirements so that you, if possible, based on your travel schedule, can only need to take one test, right? That's within the window for both entry into the country and also for your cruise. So that's a very good point with Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we had an experience with St. Martin. We ended up having to take 2 tests, but that was also the first cruise, so sailing out of North America, so things were up in the air.
Kat, Princess is not announcing this, but their voicemail indicated that if you have a cruise in January, you can rebook. That would pertain to us. So Princess, I hope they make that as clear as possible to everyone. I suspect that one of the reasons that you may not see a big announcement is because it may not be a significant, if any, depending on the exact dates of those departure at all from what their existing practices have been, because Princess is, like many other lines, has been ever since cruising restarted, allowing you to cancel up to just a couple days out and get a future cruise credit, or just immediately rebook. So that you're comfortable sailing. So I'm glad, and I hope cruise lines continue to do that sort of thing. Sorry, just reading through more comments. Kim, your brother-in-law and sister-in-law were supposed to cruise this week. They just canceled as he has a medical condition, and they were concerned. Yeah, that's again, I completely understand people not wanting to travel right now, by cruise or other means. I just want to make sure that is, if you take away one thing from all this, it's not, oh, go on a cruise. That's not what I want it to be. The one thing I want you to take away is that if you're not comfortable cruising, please do right by yourself, and also, isolate as best as practical, right? When you do need to go out, wear a KN95 or an N95. Found in a website, no affiliation at all. I believe it was 95 project, N95project.org.
We should look that up, and
Sure.
it's actually
where you can get N95s and KN95s at reasonable prices. Is their mission is just to get people access. Yeah, n95project.org. So yeah, just make sure everyone makes those decisions. If they're not cruising, then I hope they're staying safe wherever they're located. Randy, did I ever try the bungee exercise class? I did not. I'll give you one of the good reasons. So Larissa loved it. Our friend Cecilia, one of our very best friends, she's on Scarlet Lady right now. She just did it this morning.
Yeah, she did.
And thought it was fun. I did not, for a couple reasons. One very good one, it's in the morning. I don't do mornings.
No, but it's at 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m.
I'm also very lazy, and by 3 p.m. I've had drinks.
He's just pretending he didn't know
that. Pascal, you're far more worried about the travel to the cruise port than any time after boarding the ship. Absolutely. In fact, and this is a tiny bit of a spoiler alert for Kim. For when you get your mail, I recommend wearing an N95, wearing KN95 at the airport on your flight in an Uber. I've had for a while a stack of N95s that we were wearing in Ubers on the way to from anywhere, because it's real close quarters, right? And I've got a bunch of KN95s now. Why not add that level of protection, especially on your way, because you don't want to test when you get there. Test positive. You don't want to test when you're on. You don't want to spread to other people. You want to have a good time. Yeah, we definitely need to hang out sometime, but you always seem to be traveling.
And many
you
places
and you all fancy live in Miami Beach. Joe, hello. CDC stands for cruising don't count. Yeah, you know what? I still truly believe that the CDC has good intentions, because I can't really think of any other justification, but just poor execution in this messaging, lopsided messaging, as I've been calling it. Notice Virgin strongly recommends masks. How's the protocol if you didn't want to wear a mask? Great question. So actually, Chris,
it's changing.
I don't remember if you and I talked about this on board or not, but what was interesting was halfway through 2 sailings ago on Virgin, halfway through, they said, we're recommending you wear masks. And then at the start of our sailing, I told a few people, like, it's going to change. It's going to change. Halfway through our sailing, or at the beginning of our sailing, they said, we are asking you to wear masks. And then it became a requirement as of the very next sailing, which left a couple days ago, which my friend is on.
Which I'm
and
looking forward to talking to her.
our sailing, they were requiring in theaters and like packed venues, like they were even handing them out at doors if you weren't wearing one. But they're putting push alerts and stuff like that. And I suspect we will see
more
celebrity cruises, by the way, requiring masks any moment now. They just did on Equinox starting today. So I suspect we'll see that. Eric, thank you for putting the link there. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong buttons. What am I doing now? How do I, there we go. Thank you. N95project.org. Check that out. Again, no affiliation, but I thought it was pretty cool. Cat, other cat, so many cats. Hello, cat. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope we get to cruise soon. We need to plan more for 2022. We only have like 3 or 4 cruise books for 2022.
Oh, I was thinking about that.
We just did 11 rapid fire. Got to plan more. Maybe we'll get to see Kat on one.
Panic attack when I thought about that.
So Nicole asks a great question. Have you heard anything about them requiring antigen tests closer to sail date? Should be closer or immediately prior to boarding. Even the CDC recommends right before and possibly 2 tests. Nicole, I 100% support a requirement to test at the terminal. Now, some people are going to say, Billy, you're making embarkation terrible. It's costing the cruise lines money. Yeah, and listen, cruise lines can pass on that cost to guests. I think that's perfectly fair, and they will, right? Whether you see it or not, they will. Inconvenience. It depends how well executed it is. We've done
3 sailings right now where we've gotten tested at the port.
4.
Oh,
MSC was... They're not doing it at the port anymore, but they were. And I will tell you that it was pretty solid. Like, did it delay things? Yeah, but it delayed things by less time than it takes me at home to go drive somewhere, find an appointment, drive somewhere, get the test, wait for the results. Adds 30, 40 minutes. That's fine by me. And you're right. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it better than, testing 48 hours before? 100%. Yes. So I fully support cruise lines doing that. I would love to see that change.
Makes me feel safer. Like, even though nothing's 100% and I'm not too concerned with Omicron, as opposed to some of the earlier variants.
I'm mostly concerned it'll screw up our travel plans. Yeah. Kim, you really enjoyed reading blogs on the latest Virgin Voyages cruise, Virgin Atlantic. I have said that. I've made that mistake in saying it. And actually somebody I was talking to, I was on a video call with someone. They were like, you on Virgin Atlantic? My back is better than it was yesterday. Yeah. So guys, everyone, if you want to read the last live blog from our most recent Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady cruise, that's up on the website at cruisehabit.com. And we tried a kind of sport fun thing. We run this beach, it's called, over at the Beach Club at Bimini, their private destination in the Bahamas. And we won. The tiebreaker was a tug of war, and I heard something pop in my lower back. But despite the other team outweighing us by easily 30% and being way stronger, we somehow determination and my spine.
And Billy's spine.
Right, the camera lose focus again. This camera is really not loving me today.
I don't know what's happening. It's better now.
You're moving closer toward me. Oh, Port St. Lucie, Jupiter. Fantastic. That's very close. We can definitely hang out a lot easier. That's only
it's actually really
45 minutes. Yeah.
Lives there, actually. Yeah. We worked out at the
same. Virgin port testing did great. Yeah, Elizabeth says, thought they did a great job. Chris says it. Sorry, it's as I'm clicking, it's moving. Yeah, I thought they had that down to a science, and it's going to be even better, I'm sure, when they move to because now they're hopping around. They're at different ports each sailing. Sometimes they're going to have their bespoke terminal ready sometime in the first half of this year. I asked them. I said, "Hey guys, any update on that? It was supposed to be like around end of the year," and they said, "What they said? They said winter or spring of 2022." I was like, "Okay, you really don't know yet, but it looks closer to being a building, so I'm sure it'll be even better
Yeah.
when they have their bespoke terminal. I'm looking forward to seeing it, hopefully on a cruise, but if not, I'll just have a drive down there and take a look. Len thought it was a hammock injury.
No.
The
I would think, right? The way he got into the hammock the first time.
rumors of my death by hammock are have been greatly exaggerated. Yeah, though, Len, I did. I don't know if you saw. I think I posted on Instagram. Maybe I put it on one of the live blogs. I did finally master getting in and out of the hammock. So what Len's talking about, if you have a sea terrace, which is what they call balcony room on Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady, then with literally except two of the sea terraces, which they don't even talk about. I don't know why. They all have hammocks. They're these red hammocks. They're handmade by women in Thailand. It's a cool project they have actually, and they're cool. You can actually, I just found this out. Did you know you can buy them on the show? I didn't know that. I would have done that. Don't know where I would have put it, but probably would have bought it. But they're really comfy, and it's so cool to lay out there on your veranda and your sea terrace. Check out Instagram and the live blog. You see pictures, video of that. But man, did I not know how to get in and out of that thing on the first sailing. There's actually on the ship tour that I did of Scarlet Lady. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. You can see me just absolute disaster, but I got good at it. I got good at it. Pascal, several people have asked me about that. I've never watched Squid Games. I have no idea what you're talking about. But several people have asked me
about it on at the game, but I don't know because I've never seen it. So I heard a couple when we were talking about doing the tug of war as the last one, a couple of guys in our team said something about Squid Games, but I think it was part of the strategy. I don't know. Maybe not. I have no idea what we're talking about.
And speaking of that, Len's making a Seinfeld reference that I feel like I must have said something. It was the hammock injury a Seinfeld reference? Now
I don't know.
It's cool. I'll just go watch I'll go watch the entire series while I'm waiting for our Apex cruise. What concerns, if any, do you have about impacts to your celebrity Apex sailing next month? So next month, it's next week. I mean, it is next month. It's also next year by that definition. But yeah, in just 8 more days. So for me, chief concern is I want to make sure that we're well and can get on the ship. That is number one.
That's why we're
that is number one. And I'm a selfish person because I'll tell you number two is that everyone else that we're sailing with can get on. But I'm selfish, so number one. Beyond that, I want the crew to be comfortable. I know that because of the long periods of isolation that crew are required to undergo if they test positive. I know that some crew are working longer hours than normal.
Yeah.
Or just, they're being short-staffed. So that's the big thing. Might there be some differences in the experience? Might some shows get cut or up in-person experiences change? Like on Scarlet Lady, they moved karaoke outdoors. I thought that was awesome. And it ended up being beautiful. I kind of want every karaoke to be outdoors now. So I expect things like that, but I'm not worried about things like that. I want to make sure that we get on. I want to make sure that everyone stays safe, and I want to make sure that the crew is as comfortable as possible. Hammocking is a skill. Yes, it is a skill I have not mastered, but I came a lot closer last time. Oh, don't be a show off because you have some natural hammock abilities. Chat. Be well. Thank you. Thank you for coming and hanging out in chat. I look very forward to you living closer so we can hang out. We will have dates coming up, Kat. I look forward to that. So that was a lot of rambling on, but I hope you guys found some of that helpful and clarifying. If I'm going to wrap up some of the points around the CDC stuff, it's that I understand if anyone wants to postpone travel plans, but only if the alternative is staying home and avoiding contact with others, because the alternative to cruising and not staying home and away from others is probably not safer than cruising. It is almost certainly not, in fact. positivity rates on land suggest that despite the CDC's lopsided messaging, you're a lot less likely to become infected on a cruise ship than on many places on land. So if you don't want to cruise, if you want to keep it safe, stay inside this holiday, this New Year's and for the next couple weeks, I get it. But if you want to go out and you want to have a good time, consider a cruise. There's still space available. January 8th, apexgroupcruise.com. You can come join us. We would love to have you. We'll take you out on an excursion. I'll even get you maybe a specialty meal or two. We will treat you like crazy. If you book a group cruise, you book that Apex group cruise right now, you will be blown away by the things that that touring plans and Cruise Habit will do for you to make it so that your vacation is even more awesome. Len, actually, I don't think this would be a problem because if I'm not mistaken, if those freezers are in range, and Publix, they're a legit operation. They have not only graphs to chart the temps, but alarms to go out of temperature. I think you'll be okay. I think
because of the temperature and what the
I
virus
think you'd
can
be
take back
okay.
up.
So you know what, Len? I don't know what's going to happen if you go lick the Publix freezer. But I don't think it's going to be COVID.
Yeah.
Now, if you mean like the handle, rotavirus, norovirus, rotavirus, so many things if you lick that handle over at the Publix freezer. But like the inside, I think you're good. Let me know how it works out for you. I'll follow in on Twitter. Eric, thank you, man. Eric, you were like having a virtual assistant.
He's a machine. Yes.
With the good advice, book the Apex Group Cruise.
Good advice.
I'm looking very forward to that sailing. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you on that sailing. And if anyone has more questions, pay you then. Eric, you know what? You're getting a sandwich to your inbox once this broadcast is over. How's that, buddy?
For beer. I mean, when we come back,
it was going to be a gift card. It could be a sandwich, a beer. Like, how was I going to put a sandwich in his inbox?
That's true. I don't know. I took you seriously when you said that.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Richie Hausman, Happy New Year to you too. I will have a cruise daiquiri, a cruise whiskey. I will have many cruise beverages. I'm gonna have a bee's knees. Was that the one? No, not the bee's knees. What's the one that I really liked? Honey? No, is it called honeycomb? Okay, it's called a honeycomb.
The retreat.
At the retreat. Oh man. So at the retreat on Celebrity Edge and Apex, they have a drink called a honeycomb. It's amazing. You can have the drink elsewhere on the ship, but the ingredients are slightly different. Man, I will have several of those for you.
Yeah.
Delightful. Happy New Year to everyone. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you have more cruise questions, whether about the CDC's guidance, or anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Check out the live blog. We just cruised, in the middle of all these changes. We were just on Scarlet Lady, had a great time. It was our third Virgin Voyages cruise. Maybe we'll be cruising on Virgin Voyages with some of you in the near future. I know I would love that. I'm pretty sure Larissa would like that too. So reach out with questions. Love talking ship with all of you. I appreciate all of you who like, subscribe, who watch, who read. You are the reason that we do this. That's only partially true. I'd probably still be doing it, but no one would be watching. It would be so depressing if that were the case. So thank all of you guys for being there with us through the weird times, through 2021, and I look forward to being with you in 2022. Now head over to the YouTube channel if you're not already there. Subscribe.
Then, and watch the Scarlet Lady ship tour because
it's awesome.
It's a good one.
And Larissa's in it. I'm in it. You can see me falling in a hammock. It's got everything. Thank you guys. Have a safe and wonderful evening and New Year. Look forward to talking ship with all of you again in 2022.